Tonight on NewsWatch, cold weather across the country. A look at the dropping temperatures and how they are affecting communities. Plus, Al-Qaeda causing chaos in Iraq, why the terrorist group is gaining ground in the Middle East. And the battle to beat child sex trafficking in Brazil. All this and more tonight on NewsWatch. Bitter cold is bearing down on much of the nation. Good evening. I'm Mark Martin. Degrees in the negatives, wind chills making it seem colder. Many Americans are bundling up as temperatures continue to fall tonight. Heather Sells has been following the situation, and she joins us now with more. Heather.
Yeah, Mark, Virginia Beach is just in the mid-40s right now, but dramatic changes lie ahead tomorrow. It and the rest of the lower 48 will experience some dangerously low temperatures. It is all part of a mass of cold air that's coming from Canada, and it is expected to break a lot of records.
It's very cold, and it's very dangerous for people.
Just bundle up. I got a heavy ski jacket.
Weather experts call the frigid, dense air from Canada a polar vortex, and it's powerful. By tomorrow, it will have brought sub-freezing temperatures to every state in the lower 48. Already in Minnesota today, it's minus 25, coupled with wind chills that make it feel like 47 below. School is closed in every district and in parts of 6 other Midwestern states as well. Also in the Midwest, airlines canceled more than 1,000 flights on Sunday and hundreds more today.
I just want to go home. I just want to get back settled in.
At New York's JFK, workers had to dig out this Delta plane after it skidded off the runway. A foot or more of snow in the Midwest and Northeast is only adding to the difficulty and danger of getting around. In some places, roads are simply impassable.
As soon as I got out my tow truck, it was like we was on an ice skating rink. Everybody was slipping and sliding.
Mark, in many parts of the country, it hasn't been this cold in 2 decades. So we are looking at a lot of record breaking in the next 24 hours. And there is real concern also about frostbite and hypothermia. In some of the coldest areas, frostbite can set in less than 5 minutes. So, Mark, public health officials are warning people who can to stay at home.
All right. Good advice. Thank you, Heather. And for more on just how low temperatures will fall overnight, we turn now to AccuWeather's Heather Waldman.
Life-threatening chill blasted through the northern plains as we headed into this morning. Parts of the Dakotas saw AccuWeather real field temperatures as low as 70 degrees below zero. That's frostbite in easily less than 5 minutes. This cold air is blasting south and east. It won't be quite as cold as what they saw in the northern plains, but still brutal chill as we head through the day on Tuesday. Northwesterly winds helping to drive that air into our region. Records going to be challenged as far south as the Gulf Coast. Atlanta could get down to 6 degrees tonight. Their record low is 10 degrees. Even down along the coast of the Carolinas, Charlotte, you'll reach 9 degrees. 18 in Jacksonville, even Miami going to be much colder than average for this time of the year. Single digits up into Philadelphia as well. But what you really want to keep in mind here as we head through tonight and into tomorrow as well is it's the real field temperatures that are really going to make the difference. You factor in the winds that'll be anywhere from 20 to 30 miles per hour out of the north and northwest. We're talking AccuWeather real field temperatures even here in central Pennsylvania as low as 40 degrees below zero. Again, unless you have to be outside, it's best if you just stay in tonight through tomorrow as high temperatures going to be in the single digits in many places.
In other news, Congress returned to work today after a 2-week break. Some of the issues topping their agenda this session: an extension of unemployment benefits, the president's health care plan, the debt ceiling, and confirming Janet Yellen as the head of the Federal Reserve. Lawmakers face a January 15th deadline to agree on a spending bill to avoid a partial shutdown similar to that from last fall. And with 2014 being an election year, there's a lot at stake for lawmakers. Republicans are seeking to maintain their House majority and seize control of the Democratic-led Senate. The U.S. Supreme Court is temporarily blocking gay marriage in Utah, at least while a federal appeals court more fully considers the issue. Same-sex unions became legal in Utah when a federal judge struck down the state's voter-approved ban, ruling the ban violates the constitutional rights of gay couples. That decision led to more than 900 gay marriages in the state. Today's order from the High Court will remain in effect until the 10th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals decides if banning gay marriage violates Utah's Constitution. The National Security Agency can keep collecting daily records from every American's telephone. That's the ruling from the secretive U.S. spy court that oversees some of the NSA's activities. The approval is the first since two conflicting court decisions over the constitutionality of the program. Senator Rand Paul is suing the government over the NSA's spying practices. He wants it to stop snooping on the American people and says the agency's authority is too broad.
One single warrant should not apply to everybody who has a cell phone in America. So I think the idea of a class action lawsuit with hundreds of thousands of participants really beats home and brings to the forefront the idea that this is a generalized warrant and it should be considered unconstitutional.
A presidential advisory panel also recommended the NSA no longer be allowed to collect and search phone records without obtaining court approvals. Now to Iraq, where the government there has launched a major military offensive against al-Qaeda. Militants from the group are trying to take over a strategic province. George Thomas has the details.
The Iraqi government has lost control of the cities of Fallujah and Ramadi to al-Qaeda. Inside Iraq's Anbar province, masked terrorists brandishing guns and rocket-propelled grenades and chanting "God is great" have vowed to punish anyone who supports the Iraqi government.
The revolutionaries of Fallujah tribes have resolved to punish those, the Kavajes, who are linked to the sectarian government.
The group known as the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant has been steadily gaining control of the province, trying to create an Islamic state near Syria's border.
The most dangerous thing is that they are able to call fighters together and launch suicide attacks at any time.
The al-Qaeda-affiliated militants are also active in Syria, and now experts fear the group's threat may spread beyond the region.
The international community doesn't understand yet the danger of Daesh. They don't know how easy for it to spread into Europe and Asia.
The Iraqi government is now on the verge of trying to retake both cities. The country's defense ministry released footage showing reported al-Qaeda holdouts being bombed. Iraq's prime minister has urged residents of Fallujah to kick the terrorists out of their neighborhoods as the army surrounds the city, preparing for a potential offensive. Iraq's close Shia ally Iran has offered to help fight al-Qaeda. Meanwhile, Secretary of State John Kerry says the U.S. will help Iraq, but won't send troops to fight the terrorists.
So we are not obviously contemplating returning. We're not contemplating putting boots on the ground. This is their fight.
34 people have so far died in government airstrikes against the terrorists. George Thomas, CBN News.
For more on the growing presence of al-Qaeda in the Middle East, we turn now to our terrorism analyst, Eric Stakelbeck, and he joins us now from Washington. Eric, how has the civil war in Syria empowered al-Qaeda in Iraq?
You know, Mark, it's amazing how the tentacles of al-Qaeda have stretched out from Syria over the past 3 years. A lot of these fighters right now, Mark, in Syria, which remember is right next door to Iraq, are flowing into Iraq, in particular that Anbar province that George just discussed in Iraq. It is on the border with Syria, and there's a real worry here that you may have a mini al-Qaeda state developing, Mark, between Syria and Anbar province in Iraq. That's a pretty broad range of land right there that al-Qaeda right now has control over, at least major parts of.
Eric, do you think the violence we're seeing now in Iraq is going to spread to other areas of the Middle East? You mentioned a portion of Syria. Any other areas?
Yeah. Well, Mark, it already is. In Lebanon, for instance, look, of course you have Iraq, Syria, but in Lebanon, we're seeing more and more sectarian violence. Look, Hezbollah was the big dog. The Shias, Mark, were the big dogs in Lebanon, have been for years. Now we see more of these Sunni al-Qaeda types really stirring things up in Lebanon as well. So Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, that whole kind of triangle there, big trouble right now, and al-Qaeda really on the upswing.
What is al-Qaeda's main goal?
The main goal, Mark, is basically a worldwide Islamic state or caliphate, which we've discussed here on the show before, and everyone would live under Islamic Sharia law, whether you like it or not. But why should every American, Mark, care about what's happening right now in Iraq and Syria with al-Qaeda. If Syria become al-Qaeda safe havens, al-Qaeda fighters can train there to conduct attacks against America. Remember what happened in Afghanistan before 9/11? Osama bin Laden, his minions, used it as a safe haven to plan 9/11. We could see that develop in Iraq, in Anbar province, or in Syria, where al-Qaeda has safe haven to plot, to plan, to carry out attacks against America, because we are their ultimate goal and their ultimate target, Mark. And by the way, the city of Fallujah in Iraq, which so much American blood was shed back in 2004, Mark. More American troops killed in the battle for Fallujah than any battle since Vietnam. Al-Qaeda has retaken that city and has even taken American military hardware that was left behind. That's the situation we're in right now.
Very disturbing, but thank you, Eric, for your insights and for keeping us up to date. And remember, for the latest from Eric, you can check out his weekly show and blog, The Watchman, and you can find both at our website, cbnnews.com. Peace talks over the violence in South Sudan have stalled. The world's newest country has been rocked by a power struggle in recent weeks. The deadly violence began in mid-December, forcing about 200,000 South Sudanese men, women, and children to flee their homes. Officials have been holding talks in neighboring Ethiopia, trying to resolve the conflict, but those talks still face major hurdles. The U.S. has been evacuating staff from its embassy in South Sudan. U.S. missionaries and aid workers are also leaving the country. Coming up, a look at why more and more Americans are going under the knife to shed some pounds. 1/3 of adults around the world are now overweight or obese. That's nearly 1.5 billion people. A new report from a British think tank finds the number of obese and overweight people has been rising rapidly in the developing world, nearly quadrupling since 1980. The Overseas Development Institute says the main reasons include diets with more sugar and fat, along with more people having sedentary lifestyles. The report warns of a major increase in obesity-related diseases, including diabetes, strokes, and heart attacks. For some, losing weight seems an impossible task, and that's leading more and more Americans to turn to surgery. But some are concerned the results are not long-lasting. Lori Johnson brings us this look at the struggle to keep off weight after going under the knife.
Lisa Streb is loving her new, thinner body and says she owes it all to her weight loss surgery, also known as bariatric surgery.
I'm sorry I didn't do it sooner. I'm sorry I didn't do it when I was younger and had more fun with this new life. The rest of my life is in front of me, and there's nothing to stop me at this point.
Like most people who undergo bariatric surgery, Lisa lost most of her weight in the first year after the procedure. But now it's been 3 years and she's managed to keep it off.
It's just been a completely new life for me, and I just embraced it and just enjoy every day of it now.
Dr. Anita Kirkoulis studied more than 2,000 people who underwent one of 2 types of weight loss surgery. She discovered many success stories 3 years after their procedure.
There was substantial weight change following both bariatric procedures at 3 years after surgery. And we also saw improvements in diabetes, lipids, and blood pressure at the 3-year time point as well.
The patients lost, on average, about 1/4 of their initial weight. About half saw improvement in their diabetes. Blood pressure improved in almost everyone. The results were published in the Journal of the American Medical Association.
Study authors say while there were improvements in weight loss and other health outcomes, they were less than what's been shown in prior studies. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Up next, children who are being sold and traded for sex in broad daylight. We'll show you where. Authorities in New Jersey are doubling their efforts against sex trafficking ahead of next month's Super Bowl. Hundreds of thousands of fans are expected to head to East Rutherford, New Jersey for the February 2nd game. State officials have set up new training for law enforcement, hospitality workers, airport employees, and others. The program will help in identifying signs of sex trafficking. Local churches are also working to bring awareness on the issue. Many believe New Jersey will appeal to sex traffickers because of its highway system, proximity to New York City, and diverse population. The Super Bowl isn't the only large sporting event that attracts traffickers. When the world comes together for the Olympics, sex tourism starts to rise. In 2016, Brazil will host the Summer Games. And as Heather Sells explains in tonight's Focus Report, the country is already working to cut down on the exploitation of children during the event.
In recent years, growing numbers of tourists have flocked to northeastern Brazil. Here, they take advantage of the region's beautiful beaches, its colonial architecture, and tragically, its children.
It's very easy to buy a girl. It's like buying chocolate.
CBN News traveled to northeast Brazil for a closer look at the area's child sex trafficking epidemic. Youth counselor Carlos da Bomba describes it as out of control. Taxi drivers, hotel workers, and drug dealers form an underground network connecting supply and demand. And every week, Da Bomba's agency receives 5 to 6 new victims in need of help. After our interview, we walked to the beach across from our hotel, and Da Bomba noticed children for sale right in front of us. Our translator approached a young boy working as a transvestite. He agreed to tell us how the system works.
They come in the car, they ask how much it is. I tell them and they say if they want me, and if they want me, they take me.
Leah uses the $25 to $50 per trick to buy clothes and food for himself and his mom. He told us he started at age 14. His life of pain was clear.
I don't like it. I hate it. I just do it because I need it.
Brazil may soon overtake Thailand as the #1 country in trafficked children. The United Nations estimates that more than 250,000 are sexually exploited here. Much of it happens in the Northeast region, where child sex tourists arrive from Europe and the U.S.
We see kids start at age 12, 13. It's a way for them to have an income, to receive money easily.
And as if the problem of child sex trafficking wasn't bad enough, the worst may be yet to come. Many here fear the World Cup games, to be held in the stadium being built behind me, will bring a flood of tourists eager not just for sports, but for children.
We are trying to find a way to avoid this.
Egivaldo Tuarez works in child services in the metro area of Recife. His research suggests kids here are in danger.
What we see before and after the World Cup is trauma in the communities.
Most who work with youth here believe more tourism means more child exploitation. So public officials and nonprofits are teaming up to raise awareness and try to prevent a potential region-wide disaster.
The social workers are very concerned about it, so they are working in prevention now with educational materials in the city and also giving workshops in the schools.
Many in this region also recognize that a long-term strategy is essential to wipe out a tragedy that's deeply embedded in the culture. Poor children here typically grow up in small, crowded homes where they see sexuality that should be private and often face abuse themselves.
They start early to see sex in a distorted way, so it's easier to start in this kind of life.
Drug dealers also take advantage of kids addicted to crack and other illegal substances. It's also common for desperately poor parents to encourage their children to sell themselves.
The moms, sometimes they put their children in this situation because they need help.
In the case of Sophia, a 15-year-old we met, her parents simply looked the other way. Sophia says she stopped because she wants a better life.
I realized it's not good. You can get pregnant and be unable to go on with your studies and get a good job.
The U.S.-based ministry Compassion International is in the sex trafficking fight for the long haul. Compassion uses child sponsorships to fund ministry centers across the country.
We are not only providing a place for them to come to avoid the streets, but we are concerned about giving them an education in a holistic way so they can have a different opportunity than their parents.
Compassion partners with local churches to take care of children's physical needs, and it emphasizes academics, including a special curriculum that targets sexual abuse. Compassion's approach also emphasizes decision-making for a lifetime. It's a tough concept for so many children whose families desperately need help now. But prevention via one-child sponsorships may be the most effective strategy. In a recent survey, economists rated it #1 in the long-term fight against poverty.
I believe the best way to combat exploitation is the prevention we're doing in partnership with Compassion.
And for that reason, Tuares has become a regular at this project, building relationships with kids in the hopes of helping them to realize their dreams. For these children, it's not too late. And it may not be too late for Leah. After our interview, we prayed for him and for his dreams.
I would like to get married with someone I'm in love with and quit doing what I do.
Leah told us he'd like to become a nurse, a true miracle perhaps, that one child in so much pain would dream of helping others. Reporting in Recife, Brazil, Heather Sells, CBN News.
Up next, how CBN worked to bring a very special Christmas to some kids in India. CBN planned a special Christmas event for 300 underprivileged children in India. The day-long event was called the Light of Education Literacy Program, and it was sponsored by CBN's Orphans Promise. Children were encouraged to showcase their talents through skits, musical performances, and memorizing Bible verses. A local pastor also shared a Christmas message, and children were served lunch. At the end of the event, each child received a special gift. Orphans Promise reaches more than 1,200 children throughout India with its literacy centers. Well, that's all for this edition of NewsWatch. Remember, you can email us your comments and questions at newswatch@cbn.com. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great evening.